I'm Emily Lunt, and I believe with my whole heart and soul that our homes are places where we can seek and love the truth, celebrate beauty, and learn good things every single day. That's why I'm educating my kids at home, and I know you can do it too. Welcome to Heart and Soul Homeschool. Well, welcome back this week for part 2 with Natalie Haber. I'm really excited to talk to her about our next subject, which is community. And it's something that we hear so much about. I feel like in every walk of life, we hear about it at church, we hear about it on TV, we hear about it especially a lot within the homeschool community. And so I thought it would be a great topic because it just really dovetails and is the purpose of your ministry with Haber House in a lot of ways. And so Natalie, what in your definition is community?
For me, community is just coming alongside people. Mm-hmm. It's obviously people. And you're having people alongside of you who can encourage you and maybe even tell you hard things and that you can have fun with and grow in the Lord with and, you know, come in, like eat with.
Yeah,
all
eating
those
is
sort of
so
things.
important.
Eating
I feel
is
like
very important too.
Yeah, I make the best community with people who like to eat.
Yes,
I'm
which is
suspicious.
so biblical.
Yeah, it is. It's very biblical. And I always feel like I'm a little suspicious when people don't enjoy eating as much as I do.
Well, I'm not that person, so it doesn't work out.
Okay, this is why we are fast friends here. So as far as what makes a healthy community, you listed off several things that I would say are qualities of a healthy community. You know, able to talk about things that matter, sometimes the hard topics, honesty, all of those things. Because I think maybe that's why we talk so much about community, because it's so hard to find genuine community. And there are so many false communities right now. I feel like people feel like they have a social media community or, you know, all of these things that substitute for that genuine community. And you have just been led in this particular season of life really to minister to women in the area of community. So tell us more. You mentioned just a little bit about what you do with Haber House and the Flourish ministries, but let's dive into that now and talk about it in detail.
Well, as I said, have been in the homeschool community for about 13 years, and I had helped start groups, start co-ops, events, all sorts of different things within the homeschool world. And my husband being in the public school world, we began to see that there really was a need for encouragement in motherhood in general across the board. And so about a year ago, we felt like the Lord called us to start Haber House. And through that, right now, we're really focusing on Flourish Ministries, KC. And what we do, I absolutely love, and you would love, because it always involves food. And so we do one large event in the fall. Last year, we had about 100 women. And so this year, we're thinking the space holds up to about 130. So we're hoping that that's how many will come. And then we do one around Christmas time, and we do one in the spring. And at these events, the other two are smaller events where it's like 30, 35 women. And then we also do pop-up events throughout the year, which is usually in someone's home. And there's also free community groups we do as well. Throughout the year, just depends. We just did one specific for homeschool moms, since I'm a homeschool mom, where we did a topical Bible study. A pastor's wife led it that I'm friends with, and she just got us deep in the Word on each of these topics and how it ministered to the heart of us as homeschool moms. It was only 4 weeks. It was perfect. It really was excellent. But at every event, we do have encouraging speakers. We have food, coffee, tea. My goal is really for women to come in and feel like they can find community, they can find a friend, they feel seen. It's a beautiful space, because I really think that opens the heart of women.
It does.
Because we are uniquely made by God. And when we come in and we're like, here's a drink for you, here's some food for you, you know, here's beautiful flowers, they can just,
I think it means a lot to us as women, because I think so many, on our break, we were just talking about Sally Clarkson.
Yes.
And she is so focused on how women are civilizers and life givers and the showers of hospitality. Yes. And I think when that's the role that we take on in our lives, that it really just means the world when someone else does that for us, right?
Yes.
It's kind of humbling, but also it just is so special. It makes such an impression on me when someone does something like that for me. So I think you're right. It opens our hearts, and I think God made us that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for that to minister. So I find myself as a homeschool mom, the conversation is so often about finding a homeschool community, and it's so centered on homeschooling. And so I'm finding myself kind of longing for community outside of that, so that it's great to have friends and community who are kind of in a similar life stage, but I also want want a broader experience, I guess, in life right now. And I kind of crave getting out of the bubble just a little bit. And so do you think it's good for women to build diverse community and not sort of put all your eggs in one community basket, so to say?
Oh, I absolutely do, because I feel like you said, I do have a close-knit homeschool community. I think that is important because they'll be able to understand things that maybe other people can't, or situations. I feel it'd be the same way if your child was in public school or private school or wherever they are. It's good to be part of that community as well. But like you're saying, diversity is how we grow. It's how we're able to grow. And it's like maybe they see things in a different way than we do. And I think really, if you look at scripture, that's really the way it was laid out.
Yeah, it adds kind of a richness to life. And I think also sometimes we can get so focused on people who are at exactly the same stage of life, who maybe have kids who are just the same age as ours or experiences just like ours. And so, I find myself really enjoying friendships with women who are older than me also, and just gaining from there's comfort, I think, in their wisdom that they've gone through things. And so those are some ways that I've tried to sort of diversify my community a little bit. And you and I were also just chatting a little bit about moving into the empty nest years. You're a little bit closer than I am to that, but you still got several years of having kids at home. And I have several friends who are in the stage where kids are almost to leave home, have just left home, and they put so much into homeschooling and so much into that part of their lives that they're a little bit just at loose ends. Yeah. And so I think as homeschool moms in particular, that might be another reason why we would want to build community outside of just that small bubble, just to kind of prepare. So you touched on this just a little bit, but walk us through one of your events. I love the name Flourish, because that's what we all want to do in life, right? Is flourish. That's what we want for our kids, and we should want that for ourselves also. So walk us through, if I came to one of your events or one of your groups, what would it look like from the minute I walked into the door?
Okay, well, flourish comes from the scripture that says the righteous flourish like a palm tree. They're planted in the house of the Lord. And so that's really what we have established this ministry on, because we want you to be planted in the word and in his truth. And so we want women to come, and when they come to our event, first of all, they know that they have been prayed for. Like, we are praying for them. We are praying for the speakers. We are praying over the space that the peace of the Lord would be there. And so then when they come in, we really want them to feel seen. And so we have a team of about 4 women. And so hopefully one of us is going to be able to connect with you and make you feel seen. And so you're not alone. And also we try to help them make connections too, like, hey, did you know this person? And that sort of thing. So it's, if someone's coming alone, they feel like they're not just there by themselves.
Which I think is something that we should talk about, because that's one of the most intimidating parts about building a community, is walking, or it is for me. I know some people don't struggle with that, but just walking into a room alone, kind of cold turkey, not knowing anybody. And so I do think that removes a huge stumbling block for women who this would be really intimidating for.
Yes. And so that really is our goal, because we want every woman to come in, like I said, feeling seen when they come in. That is our goal. That's why we have smaller events. We only have one large one, because we want it to be small. We want it to be intimate. We want people to be able to feel like they connect. And honestly, that's one of the things at our events that we're trying to figure out and brainstorm about, because women, we have rented a space until maybe 9:00, and women just want to keep talking. And we're like, but that we also want them to have community, but we also need to leave. So
we also need to usher you out the door right now, ladies.
We're trying to figure that out. But when they come in, again, like you said, food is a really big deal to me. I love to eat. And I know Jesus did too. Yeah. And so that's where he encouraged and taught a lot. And so women, they come in and there's food that's been prepared for them. We always have coffee, because I love coffee. Christy, who works alongside me, she loves tea, so we always have tea. Yeah. And then they come in, and we usually have 1 to 2 speakers that are there just to encourage them and encourage their hearts, and prayer. Like, I feel like we continue to hit prayer. Like, it's the word and prayer and community. And how can we grow in that? And so that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. So what do you hear from women after they participate? What are some of the things that they give you as feedback?
It's been so humbling and just really beautiful that the Lord has allowed us to do that, because we do have women come back and say, like Rachel Alsbury, how this is how she found her community. And I've had a couple women online find us and be like, we're moving there. And one just moved here, and she was able to come to one of our groups, and just how encouraging that was for her. And she met someone else, and finding the community as well. And we've got wonderful feedback about the encouragement and the words that have been spoken and things like that. So it's so humbling. We continue to try to listen to the Lord and what he has next.
Yeah. Well, and I think that there's something special about gathering in groups of women and Christian women in particular, and just looking around a room and seeing that you're not alone, that you're not the only one who's trying to do this thing and live out your faith well. Just the camaraderie and just that special bond that comes from being in a room full of like-minded people. It's just really incredible. And I think those opportunities are probably fewer than what we would like them to be. And so I think it's amazing that you are creating these opportunities for women. So part of my pre-kid life, my career was working in events. And so I find myself at this stage in life rarely being one who attends an event. It seems like when my husband and I first got married, he was like, do you ever just go to anything? And I was like, no, I don't, and so sometimes I struggle just to be an attendee because I'm always doing something, making sure the trash is taken out even or something, you see. And so sometimes I think it's important for those of us who might trend sort of more on the Martha side of things to learn to be the Mary in those situations and soak it up. Sometimes I even feel guilty about that. Do you find that women have that tendency, like that it's hard for them just to come and really?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I haven't seen that a lot. What I see a lot is women who are lonely and they want community, but they struggle to, because we're so social media driven and things like that, they struggle to connect outside of that, where it's encouraging women to be like, no, you know what? I've had to invite women to coffee more times than I've been invited and have them over for a play date more times than I've been invited. I have a large family of 7. It's very rare if someone invites us all for dinner. That can be intimidating. But things like that, where it's like encouraging women like, hey, and there is this darling woman that I just adore. And we gotten together with another woman who had come. So it was the 3 of us. And we each challenged each other and her, like, what are you going to do this week to grow? And she was wanting more community. So she's like, I invited someone over for a play
Which is a big deal for some of us, right?
Yes.
It really feels like putting yourself out there. And what you just said about craving community outside, like in real life. I think because so much of what we do is online, sometimes picking up the phone feels so hard right now. But I've been really convicted lately, and my husband and I have been talking a lot about this, that we want to model for our kids like real people doing real things. And so one of those things that I have been really trying to think about is how do I show my daughter in particular what community with women looks like when it's maybe not a strong suit of mine, the big group activities, but I do really enjoy kind of those smaller interactions. And so modeling that true community and accepting that like my community and what might be life-giving to me might be something totally different than what's life-giving to you. And giving ourselves permission maybe to find, what do you think about that? Do women need different, we all have different community needs, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that came to mind as you were talking, as far as modeling it, is for the past, 4 years, probably, one of my daughters, it's 5 or 6 of us mothers get together with our daughters. And we started just that. We started doing a Bible study together, and we switched homes for who's it's at. And now at this stage, they're going to be juniors and sophomores. So we've been doing it for quite a while, since they were 13 years old. And we get together, and that mother gets to show and model hospitality, like you're saying. And then the daughter is also the host, and she gets to model it as well. We all come together and we study scripture together. Sometimes we just get together and like dye Easter eggs or whatever it was, or make cookies. But like at Thanksgiving, we get to do a Thanksgiving feast together. And so that's a way to bring your daughter in to model what hospitality looks like, what it looks like to be in a healthy community with women, because that's something else that I think a lot of women right now, we've seen a lot of in the Kansas City area, where women are been really hurt by community, and to encourage them to get, it's okay. And, just because you've been hurt here doesn't mean you've been hurt again. And, to get back out there, ask again, the Lord heals, all of that sort of stuff. Because I think that something else women can feel is we can feel selfish. I know for me, having so many children and a husband, obviously, and to be intentional with each of them, that can be a lot. And so if I take time away to then have real life interaction, then I'm taking away from, oh, my house maybe needs cleaned, or, oh, I didn't school enough, or, whatever it might be. Because oftentimes when my children were younger, it'd just be play dates. And now it's a different season. And so it's making time and saying, no, this is really life-giving for me to go and have coffee and with a friend, or chips and cheese, I like to do.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't love a good bowl of queso?
It was a great thing.
No, but I think that's a good point, because I think sometimes as women, kind of with the intent of not putting ourselves first in that selfish way, sometimes we totally neglect ourselves.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have a good outcome for anybody, because it really is true. When mom is not happy, nobody's happy. And I think that can be turned around to kind of be a negative thing, but it is important for us to feed ourselves. And I was actually listening to someone talk about Charlotte Mason, which is homeschoolers everyone loves, Charlotte Mason, but she does talk a lot about how moms need, that mother culture. Like, mothers need to be fed, and they need to have their own pursuits and always be learning and just taking care of themselves in a good way, not in a selfish way, in a healthy way, so that we can kind of fill our cup to then pour into everybody else. And I think sometimes that's a hard balance for me to strike, because it does feel kind of, maybe I shouldn't take this time for myself.
Yeah. And that's even why all of our events are $45 and under, $45 for a large event. Our other two events are $35, and then our pop-ups are $25, and our community groups are free. Because I think, like what you're saying, like, we can feel selfish, like, oh, we're going to go spend money on a dinner. Maybe I should spend this on something else, or my child, or my husband and I. And I think exactly what you're saying. And so we try to also keep our events very cost effective. So women are like coming in, they're getting a meal. We really want them to be able to have community.
Biblical literacy in general is just like, the numbers are just staggeringly terrible within the church, even among people who are, identifying as Christians. The numbers are just so low. And so our women at our church have really taken the bull by the horns, I guess, and have really just worked on developing our biblical literacy as a group. And so I love that your events focus on that, because we really have nothing aside from that, do we?
Yeah,
that's what matters.
No, I think it's so important, because I think if you aren't rooted and grounded in the truth, you're going to go the way of culture. And so I think it's really important to encourage women in a non-legalistic way, in a non-list way, but to really have relationship with the Lord and sit before Him daily. I think it's so important to do, and to not let women feel beat up if they're not, or not make women, feel beat up if they're not, but also be like, okay, but this is really life-giving for you. This is what gives me the strength personally with 5 children that I homeschool. I get up and spend time with Jesus in the morning, and it's as I have my coffee, and it's really life-giving for me, so then I can walk out all He's called me to each day. Not something I have to check off, but something that is really feeding my soul.
Let people see the beauty of that relationship, because it is so life-giving. And I think women so often are called to be sort of like the standard bearers, and we set the tone in our families. Absolutely. And so if we're not rooted in the truth of the word, then so much of what we do, and I think especially so much as what we do as homeschool moms, would seem pointless to me, because I honestly have never really understood secular homeschooling too much, because so much of the way we homeschool, and my heart behind it, is to disciple my kids. And man, on those days when I miss my time with the Lord in the morning, it doesn't go well.
You're like, it's harder.
Yeah, it is definitely harder. And I think, pushing through those times when I don't feel that I want to be in the Word, those are the times when I think the Lord really blesses me even more. And I think He honors our efforts. Have you experienced kind of those dry spells where you just don't want to do it?
No, absolutely. And I think He does. And I think, there are times when I sit before Him and I'm like, Lord, I need to hear from you. Just please minister to me. And I feel like for me, He's always been very faithful, and He does. Yeah. He's very faithful to me. And I think even going to the Lord, and this just came to mind as something that wasn't a dry spell, but also being really honest. If you're like, you know what, I am super angry. I'm super angry at, whatever it may be, your husband, your job, your situation, your children, whatever. Because if we're honest, we all have those emotions. Or maybe it's like, hey, I'm angry. I do not want to homeschool. This is not going the direction I wanted.
Yeah.
And I think as we humble ourselves before the Lord and then we resubmit, but Lord, I feel like this is what you've called me to. And you've called me to love my husband. You've called me to love my children and to be honoring. And he does every single time. He's been faithful to me. And so that's something I also try to teach to my children, that I'm like, as you meet with the Lord, because I think children can learn this too. It's like, you may be angry at your brother. You may be unhappy and decide you don't want to be obedient. But as you go to the Lord, he is the one who changes our hearts. He's the one who softens and hardens hearts. And he's faithful.
Yeah. And listening to Chuck about that, I mean, our children and our families are our first community. They're the first layer of our community. And so while it's valuable for us to have community, certainly with other women outside of our homes, the way we live out the community in our homes is so important. And our kids are going to learn the value in that from us. Yeah. And we are their examples. And I think what you said, always being willing to be honest about our struggles. And, that is so unhealthy to bottle all that up and not let them see, because we don't want them to look back and think like, Mom never struggled with this. Why am I having trouble? They need to know the real deal about us, obviously within reason.
Yeah,
we're like, oh, we can share. But really, I think there's value in that and in saying sorry and in, admitting that, that we didn't do it right today. Yeah. I think that's so. We need to wrap up here. But if there's a woman out there who is just longing for that community and doesn't know the first step to take, what would you suggest for her?
I think I would suggest, first of all, going to the Lord, and I would start in prayer. I feel like I beat this drum constantly, but I really think this is foundational. And going to the Lord and saying, Lord, I desire a friend. You are my best friend, and you fill me. But Lord, I really desire a kindred spirit, a friend outside of this. And I think that as we start there, then he will move and he will bring someone into your life, whether it be you meet a girl at the park and you have to be brave and say, this was really fun. Do you want to maybe meet her next week again? Because I think people do. And then if they're like, no, I don't want to, then to again, go to the Lord. Like, okay, Lord, and continue to ask. Yeah. And he is faithful and he'll bring the right people along. Yeah.
And I know you said, like, I feel like I'm beating this over and over, but sometimes I think we need to, because sometimes I'll do everything except pray about it. And if we believe that God is who he says he loves us. And so if we need a friend, he wants us to have a friend, not that he's like some Santa Claus, but, he wants us to thrive and to flourish, like you said. And some part of that is community. And so I think sometimes it feels weird to be like, please send me a friend. But I think that that's a really good thing to pray for the fellowship of other believers, that we could have a community. And so I don't think we can say it enough. I don't think we could suggest that enough. So your ministry and the events that you put on, there may be somebody out there who loves hosting, who loves having events, would love to start something like what you have started. What would be your advice if somebody wanted to start a ministry like yours?
No, I love it. I think that is amazing. I would love for things like this to pop up all over, and I'm like, Lord, do this, because I think there's such a need. I think people are so hungry for community right now. And so again, I would start with prayer. I think the Lord is so faithful, and we can see the evidence of that, to bring people alongside me to do the things I couldn't do. And I think the Lord will do that. I had a friend, I was like, oh, how do I start a nonprofit? Like, what do I do here? And even if you don't, and the Lord brought someone alongside me and she did all of that for me. But even if you're like, hey, I'm not ready for that. I don't want to start a whole ministry. Yeah. I would say, you know what? Invite 3 friends over for coffee, just to have coffee. And if you're like, oh, I hate to cook, you know what? Just grab something from the store, put it out. And that's fine. And that's good enough. And, it's like, and you don't have to have a picture perfect house. It doesn't have to be Pinterest. It could be small. It doesn't matter. But just invite a couple friends over, or even just one. And you'd be surprised how community builds within that.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And sometimes we kind of are our own worst enemies, thinking that everything has to look perfect. I know sometimes pride can get in the way of me just enjoying simple hospitality. Yeah. And I've really been trying to let that go. It's hard. That's a hard one, right?
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Well, Natalie, this has been so encouraging to me, and I know it has been for everyone who listens. So I will link to your Instagram account. Is there anywhere else that folks can get in touch with you?
On Facebook, we're also Facebook and Instagram is Flourish Ministries KC is our handle. And then we're at haberhouse.org online.
Okay.
So our website.
Yeah, and we'll link back to all of that in the show notes. So thanks for being here.
Sure,
this has been
this
really
was so
fun.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you'll join me next week for the next episode of Heart and Soul Homeschool.
Heart and Soul Homeschool is a podcast presentation of the Herzog Foundation. The views and opinions expressed on the show are those of the host and guests and not necessarily the views of the Herzog Foundation. Be sure to like and subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode of Heart and Soul Homeschool.